starting a general contracting business. I'm going to be sharing with you 20 years of experience of what I would do if I had to start over again. All right, I'm excited because you are in the right place. If you're getting started with a general contracting, construction business, any type of construction business really, but I'm going to be focusing this on, general contracting, home building, remodeling, those types of things. But if you are in the trades, this video is also going to give you a huge boost. This is a full guide. I'm going to be going over all the top things that you need to know, everything from how to get started, how much budget you need, how much money you should have set aside, how to go over, setting up your marketing, running your projects, what kind of, employees or subcontractors you're going to need, everything from project management to financials, and then finally some pitfalls of things that you need to avoid to make sure that, you're not going to get that start and then just drop off and fall off like so many other businesses. Something like 10% of businesses are still operating after 10 years and being in business. So a lot of contractors fail, and you are in the right place because I'm going to be sharing with you a way to get started quicker, have more success, and avoid all those, big icebergs that could sink your Titanic. All right. So making sense. Before we get started, give this video a big thumbs likes up. Super appreciate you for doing that. Subscribe to the channel. It'll be the best way to grow your new contracting business. All right. So first things first, first thing that you need to get figured out is your niche. And it's probably something that you may not have thought about because it's like, well, I'm a general contractor. I'm a remodeler. I'm going to, do this and work there or whatever, right? But getting a good understanding of who your client is, what your specific, service is going to be, the demographics, all that stuff is super important because it's what's going to differentiate you. If you're running into this and you're just going to be competing with everybody and hoping to get work here or work there, you're going to have a tough time because there's a lot of contractors out there already that have been in business a lot longer than you. Their marketing is a much better place. They've already got clientele. They've got a network. So you're going to have an uphill battle. Whereas if you come in knowing like, I'm going to service this specific niche or this specific service inside my market, you're going to have a much easier time getting clients and differentiating yourself. And if you're like, I don't know how to differentiate or what to do, look inside your market and do a little bit of brainstorming as far as, what services could I provide? How could I be a little bit different? Maybe you're going for a certain type of home or a certain location, whatever it is, that just really make sure that you're thought about that before you get started, because just starting and trying to get work from everywhere is going to be overwhelming. And it's a quick way to just not be effective with your sales marketing. Trust me, I've been through this. I've tried to market to the masses. It's much less effective than when you can get very specific to, this is the person I want to help. This is a service that I want to provide. So get clear on that. And what another thing that you want to be thinking of is like, what can you be the best at? So you're probably like a jack of all trades. You can maybe be good at this or that or this, but which, based on your experience and also the opportunity in the marketplace, where can you be the best at it? Is it like high-end luxury? A lot of contractors want to go after like that high-end market, which is good, but as a new contractor, that may be, hard demographic to be able to go after. Maybe it could be, lower end. It could be maybe just kitchens or just bathrooms or things like that. So you can always start narrow so that you can get really defined and have an easier time. And then later you can always expand and, build services. It's not that you're not going to do services outside of your niche or not work for people that maybe don't specifically fit in your niche. You can always bring in more work, or people will naturally ask you to do other things, but get really specific with your niche and, who your business is and who you want to serve and the feel and just the knowledge of like, this is the client that I want to work with. Is that making sense? At any time, if you have questions or need help with anything, drop a comment below. I will respond and help you personally with, whatever part of growing or starting your business you may be struggling with or need questions about. So moving on to number 2, we've got 8 points in total, so make sure you stick around to the end. Each one of these builds off the next, and it's all part of really starting a really comprehensive and well thought out business that's going to be set for success. So second one is investment. How much money are you going to need in order to start your general contracting business? The barrier to entry for, being a contractor, general contractor, is generally fairly low. You need a truck and some tools and pretty much call yourself a contractor and, drive around and do estimates and things like that, right? But in order to be successful, you do want a minimum of money saved up in the bank and have access to financing, because you're going to be dealing with larger numbers than you've ever had before, and you're going to have money coming in and going out very fast. And if you're not on top of your finances, things can go south really quickly. And a lot of guys getting into business, they have not properly thought out of like how much money they are going to need in their business, and it hurts them because they run out of cash and they end up either burning relationships or burning employees or subcontractors or whatever, or suppliers. All right, so first thing I would say say is you probably want about $5,000 for branding. And these are kind of like minimums. You should really probably have a bit more than this, but maybe go with like the basics. $5,000 for branding. And this is going to be getting your logo, getting door hangers, getting business cards, things like that. So some of your marketing materials, also getting a website. So website, you can get some cheap ones out there, more expensive ones, but you're probably going to be spending anywhere from $1,000 to a few $1,000 for a good website. Don't cheap out on this. You can build your own, but again, you got to get in the mindset of a business owner. And yes, there's some things you need to do on your own, but probably learning how to build a website is not one of them. So see who could help you with this. You don't even need to necessarily go and pay like a professional, although I would suggest that, but you probably know someone who can set up a website for you. That's fairly effective nowadays with all the tools that we have. So this $5,000 for branding, it'll set up all that kind of branding, and so that you can at least give yourself, a reputable reputation as far as looking the part of having a business. Probably going to need about $20,000 for a decent vehicle, possibly a trailer or something like that. So this, you probably already have a proper vehicle, but if you don't, you're going to need some money set aside for that. And then I'm going to say about $42,000 for 6 months of expenses. Again, this is going to fluctuate depending on you and your expenses, but you want at least 6 months of expenses for operating your overhead, for paying yourself, not necessarily cost of goods like of that you're going to spend for the projects, but any kind of overhead and your own personal income, as well as maybe like the general expenses that you're going to have for whatever, right? So if you figure that's about 5,000 per month that you're going to have like expenses for, and that's how comfortable you are with paying yourself, then you want to times that by 6 months, and you want to have that much money saved up. And the reason for this is because things get lean, or a project goes sideways, or something doesn't work out well. You don't want to be scrambling for money and taking on jobs only to bring in revenue to the company, because if you get into that kind of lack mindset where it's like, I just need to bring in work, I need to get things done, I need to hustle, it gets you really short-term thinking, and it puts you in a bad place. You end up doing work and taking on jobs and having an unorganized business that really just costs you more money, and you're always spinning your wheels. So have that buffer of at least 6 months of expenses saved up. Is that making sense? Very important point. Moving on to number 3. So now that you've got your branding, you've got your money set aside to get started, next thing is marketing. So marketing is going to probably be a new skill for you. This is your first business you've ever started. Sales and marketing and branding, all this stuff is going to be brand new to you. So this is somewhere where you really need to focus and level up your skills, and just understand that it's going to be a challenge because it's going to be something new. You haven't done it before. Marketing on the surface, it seems kind of like easy and straightforward. There is a ton of skills involved in marketing. I'm always building my skills in marketing and sales, and it just continues to, there's like so much different types of marketing, especially nowadays. There's so much that goes into it that like there's always that surface level, which you can probably pick up fairly easily. And then there's layers and layers, and every layer has like additional benefits as far as like business and the revenue and lead gen and everything that's going to provide for your business. But at the beginning, you're going to market, and you're going to market. So it's going to be an uphill battle. You're a new business as well. So as a new business, nobody knows you. I don't know you. Maybe your neighbors know you. Maybe you've got a small network, hopefully, of people you know. But generally speaking, it's a new business. You're not going to have a reputation built up, and you're not going to have a network of people. So before you start your business, you want to be marketing before you plan to do projects. So let's say you want to open your business in 2 months or 3 months. You should be marketing right now. And if you are doing estimates for people, let them know. And they're like, yeah, let's move forward with this project. I want to hire you. Let them know, hey, I'm, now scheduling projects for in 2 months. So if it's June now, then maybe like August or September, that's when I'm starting to schedule projects for. You don't have to tell them that you're a new business and you're just waiting. Just let them know, like right now with our current pipeline, that's when we would have time to do your project. This sets up a few different things. It lets the client know that, hey, these people are actually busy. They're actually scheduling work ahead of time. Kind of like helps them to have that check of like, hey, I actually hired someone who's good at what they do, because, it's not like they can just start next week or something like that. You may be in a rush to get started on a project, but the reason I say to front load your production line is, at all possible, set projects farther out when you're getting started, because that way when you do get started, maybe you can start 2 or 3 or 4 projects at one time. Not all on the same day, obviously, but you can have like a buffer of projects so that you've got work scheduled from when you start your business, maybe 1, 2, 3 months out. So that way you're going to have less of those ups and downs, because if you start all the work as soon as you get it, then the issue is maybe you just have one project, you start it and then you complete it, and then you don't have another project after that. Now you've got these windows of like low revenue. If you've hired people, now you don't have work for them, things like that. So front front load your schedule by scheduling projects, 2, 3 months out. When you get started with your business, ideally you're still going to be working in your previous business, or maybe you're like kind of a self-employed and you've got some work to kind of like keep your income going. But as far as like starting your general contracting business, have that window, and so you can preload it. So don't need to go on that. I think you understand it. I hope you do. If you don't, comment below. And you want to be your local hero. So check your network, go to networking events, spend a lot of time on networking, again, learning the skills, but more important, doing the skills, just meeting people, calling people, let everybody know, hey, I'm starting a business, get out on social media, put some posts out, really generate a lot of excitement and just energy for your business and your marketing. There's a whole ton of marketing. That is what's going to be important right when you get started. A few other tips with marketing is when you do start a project, make sure you've got door hangers and you're putting door hangers, walk the block, walk 2 blocks around your project, have a site sign in front of project, set up a site sign so that anybody that is in that neighborhood, they see your sign, they see your door hangers, they see your truck, ideally with, some sort of logo or wrap on it. And it's like multiple touch points of them, like recognizing that, hey, this person works in this area, that's them. It builds your brand equity, quality. So really marketing is going to be super important. Moving on, still with me here. Number 4 is systems. So if you've seen any of my other content, like I'm huge on systems. Systems are so important, and it's what's going to enable you to scale. It's what's going to enable you to be profitable. It's what's going to enable you to keep efficiency and not lose your mind trying to wear all the hats, doing everything. Starting a business is going to be hard. It's a very difficult thing. It's one of the hardest things challenges you could take. So like I applaud you for that. But without systems, it's just going to be that much harder and difficult as far as trying to do everything yourself and not having systems in place. So some of the key systems is a CRM. Get a client relationship management software. HubSpot is a good free one. There's other ones too that I would suggest, but I'm not going to get into all of them right now. But get a CRM, very least, that keeps track of clients. So you have client data and it links with, your email marketing and a bunch of, other things as far as like keeping track of clients and stuff like that. So CRM is really important. Get yourself a cloud-based file system. So something like Google Drive, OneDrive, those types of things. And this way you can have all your files in one place. They're easily accessible from all your devices and they're easily to share with other people. And there's a whole kind of system around that file folder system. And, I've got a video on that. But for now, just get it set up and have your files there. And then lastly, the last system, and I'm mentioning all like software systems here because I'm not going to get into standard operating procedures and training videos and all that kind of stuff because that's a little bit future. Right now, we're just focusing on you getting started. And software is a really easy thing, especially because you're getting started. You're at a unique spot where you can get software in place and you're not like having to bring in a whole bunch of information from running your business for, however many years. You can start from scratch and it'll be much more organic, useful inside your business. All right. So the last system software I'm going to mention is your project management software. This may seem like a big expense when you're starting out, but it is essential to getting going. And you could put it off for the first little while, but I would suggest, you've got your branding budget and you've got that 6 months of savings set up. Spend the $100 to $300 a month, whatever it is, to get some proper project management software in place. Some people may call this a CRM, but I call it project management software. CRM to me is on the client facing side or the like sales and lead capture side of things. This is where you're going to run your estimates. You're going to manage your employees. You're going to manage projects. You're going to have schedules. Everything lives inside, your project management software. It's like the biggest kind of piece, the biggest system infrastructure that you're going to use for your business. So you want to get that set up. And again, spend the money, get the project management software. It's going to be worth so much time savings and money savings by having it set up properly. All right. So moving on, we're going to go into HR here. Take a little bit of a coffee here. All right, so next thing that we're moving on, number 5, HR, human resources. You are now a leader getting this business started. You're going to be a leader of people. Even if you're kind of just yourself starting out, you're going to want to have people on your team very early on. The big ones are going to be a bookkeeper. So you can maybe run your books for the first couple months, possibly half a year. But if you've done everything else that I've mentioned properly and you actually have revenue and proper projects, again, you don't need to know how to do everything, but you need to know who can do it for you or who you can hire to help you with it. Hire a bookkeeper, probably only going to be an hour to a week or, a couple hours a month. And that cost that you to pay them is going to just help you so much with not having to deal with it and having one less thing to do. So that's going to be someone you want on your team. You're probably going to want to hire a carpenter. So depending on what your plans are and how big of projects you have, but you're going to want some sort of assistant or carpenter, ideally someone who is not so skilled that you're going to be paying them, a ton of money because they know everything, but someone who is competent, who you can leave to work by themselves, but can also take direction and help you with that on-site actually getting stuff done. Like you can hire just subcontractors and that'll work, but it's nice to have a carpenter on staff for those small projects or those in-betweens or, getting things done here and there, a bit of demo, a bit of this. It helps you be more flexible. So you have to do what feels right for you. What I would see with starting a general contracting company is look for that one helper, that one kind of maintenance person that's kind of a jack of all trades and that can get some of the on-site work done for you and be your go between. As far as hiring subs, again, you want to be starting relationships with subs. So if you already know some, great, call them, let them know, hey, I'm starting my business soon, or I'm going to start my business. I've got projects coming up. Can you help me with pricing? So this is a good way to figure out a bit of pricing, just like kind of the basics, like what they charge maybe per square foot or per fixture, or depending on who they are. But you want to make sure that your subcontractors, your trades, that you have that relationship built up so that when you do move into a project, you can get them in the schedule, hire them, and that your pricing is in line with what they want to be paid. So they're going to be a really pivotal part and part of your success with your company. And if you don't know that many subcontractors because whatever background you have, reach out, do a Google search, figure out who's around, ask your network. And this is another good way to market is you can ask your network if you know like other home builders or contractors or real estate agents or architects or whatever. Hey, do you know like a really good plumber that you can refer me to? Or do you know like a good framer that you can refer me to? I'm going to have some projects coming up and I'd like to, hire some other people to help me with my projects or what have you. And this gives you like a warm kind of opener. And it also helps without being direct marketing because then, hey, this real estate agent or this architect now knows, hey, he's starting a business and, you can tell them a little bit about, hey, yeah, I'm getting started this project. So it helps you kind of build relationships and market without having to two birds with one stone, essentially. So moving on here. And, this brings back fond memories of me getting started for myself when I got started. I was a carpentry framer, been framing for a company for quite a while and moved that into a trades business. So I started, subcontract framing. And then from that framing company, I then grew into renovations and general contracting. So for me, I didn't have I don't know if the luxury, but I didn't have that specific start stop of like starting a general contracting company. It was more of a gradual thing. And that is a path that I see a lot of contractors make too, is where maybe you're really good at one, trade or you have a specific skill like carpentry or electrician or whatever, and you want to move into general contracting. You can make that transition over a longer period of time. But essentially, when you do start your company, you don't want to cut ties with your income. So make sure that transition is as smooth as possible. All right. So number 6. All right. Point number 6 already. Okay. So next thing would be legal. So with your business, you're going to want to have, there's going to be some legal things that you're going to need in place. The big one is any licenses and certificates. So depending again on your company and your location, but just you need to be licensed. You need any certification to be doing certain things. So whatever those are, get the ball rolling early so that you can get those in place. And the last kind of thing I'm going to be spending on legal here is contracts. So contracts, very super important. Getting started, you're probably just going to want to start to get contracts or get projects and get something signed and not worry about it too much. But a good set up project is very, very important. There's a whole bunch online you can get. You can use those if you really want to, but I would suggest probably reaching out to a lawyer or somebody like myself. I mean, we've got templated contracts that we help our clients with, but either way, no matter where you get your contract from, always have your local lawyer review it and see if it needs to be updated or changed for your specific business or your specific location. And this is another, on the HR side, another part of your team is going to have a proper lawyer. Not that you're probably not going to need them a whole lot, at least you shouldn't, but for certain things like, just double checking your contract or, the odd time something might come up, like legally, you may need to reach out to them. But it's a good person to have on your contacts list. So in the contract, certain things that you're going to want to stipulate is a deposit amount, your hourly rate, change orders are a big thing of like how to change orders get taken care of if there's any disputes. Start and stop times on the contract are big. Having the estimate in the contract is another big important part. So it kind of sets up the expectations. It helps both sides and it just makes working with your clients so much better and protects you just in case something does happen. So having a good contract, very important to get set up. All right, moving on. Number 7 here, we're going to be talking about project management. So, depending on your background, if you've been a project manager in a previous company, you're already going to have a fairly good understanding of, how to manage projects. If you've been more of like a trades type person, or maybe just like a foreman or something, you haven't really managed, trades and projects and clients and materials and all that budgets and stuff that go into project. There is a lot that goes into project management. We're not going to be going over like the entirety of it, but I'm going to be giving you the really quick tips and things you got to be thinking about so that your project can run smoothly, because ultimately the ability that you have to produce a project is going to be one of the most important parts of like building the reputation of your business. And it kind of goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways because it's really important to understand and get this. And again, go a little bit below the surface and a little deeper. When you have a really well organized company, built out systems, good employees, good trades, things run smoothly, you've got good cash flow, good finances, that is a big part of your marketing and a big lead generator, because the best thing, you've gone to all this work starting your business, getting the marketing down, selling the client, working for the client. If you screw this up, you've just like put all that work for nothing, because first, you're not going to make a lot of money because things have been run inefficiently or something's gone wrong. But secondly, you're not going to get any referrals from a client if the project didn't go smoothly, if something went wrong, if it went over budget, if you didn't give a good experience. So this project management portion, this deliverable that you've been contracted for, is super pivotal, because if that goes well, that unlocks potential from a whole lot of referrals and a whole lot of business. Let's say you're doing a $100,000 project. That one person over the next 5 years, let's say, they could potentially, even if they refer one person per year and maybe half of those jobs actually worked out, that could be 200, 300, maybe $500,000 of potential sales that you are able to unlock by doing a really good job for a client. Not that you need to bend over backwards. You need to be in control of the project and in control of the client. As much as that may sound, what do you mean by control the client? I mean by like controlling the experience that the client gets is so important. And the reason I'm going on about this is just for the reason I said, is like, yes, it's a $100,000 project. You went through all that work, but really that one project could lead to $500,000 or more of potential revenue and business for your company. So it's really important to set up the project management properly. I'm going to be sharing with you how to do that right now. The big thing on project management is time and money. So schedule is probably the first thing, and you want to have a good pre-construction checklist of all the things you need to get into place before you press play on a project. So cannot stress this enough. You should know what materials are going to be happening, like what materials you need for a project, which trades you're going to be hiring, and also like have those scheduled out, as well as what the actual schedule is for completion of the project, as well as any selections by a client. So a client's going to select things like paint color or flooring or bathroom fixtures like vanity, plumbing fixtures, what have you. That stuff should all be figured out before you ever step foot on the site to start the project. Because if you started a project and now you're trying to figure out paint colors, you're trying to figure out the plumbing fixtures, you're trying to figure out which flooring goes in, it slows down the whole process, and it's just setting things up to be inefficient, as well as for things to go over budget, because you don't know what's going in there. You don't know if they want 2 paint colors or 3 paint colors. You don't know if they want the $5 per square foot hardwood floor or the $10 per square foot hardwood floor. So it just, having all that stuff before the project starts is super pivotal, super important, and it sets you up as a really professional contractor when you tell the clients, like, I need to know all these different things. And there's a whole system and way to do that properly, but at very least have a list of like all the things that the client needs to select, present that to them, and let them tell you what they need, what's the paint color, what's the flooring, what's this. So have that all in a document so everything's clear and you can just roll into the project and know exactly what's going in there. For scheduling, getting back to scheduling here, what you want to make sure you're doing is have a buffer between critical trades. So if you got the demo, let's say it's going to take 4 days of demo, you want to have a buffer of a day before you start the framing. After framing, you're going to want to have a buffer before you move into rough-ins. Between each trade that you have like rough-ins, you're going to want probably a day in between that. If you have an inspection, you're going to want another maybe 2 or 3 days of buffer after that, or make another item in the schedule for fixing things, because rarely does an inspection go perfectly. And even if things go perfectly and you have that extra buffer in there, you could tighten up the schedule. Now you look like a hero, right? If you can get a construction project done in less time than what you've told the client, you are going to be a hero. That experience is going to be amazing. Not that you should like front load the project and tell them it's going to take 6 months when you know it's only going to take 4, but generally speaking, schedules always tend to run over time and things come up. So have that buffer in the schedule. And this will be a confidence thing as well. I can remember myself, like when when I started, I always wanted to tell a client, like, we can get this done super fast. And, everything was a rush and we pushed. And sometimes it worked out, but sometimes it didn't. And again, going back to the client experience, is it's not a good experience if you told the client it's going to take 3 weeks and it ended up taking 4 or 5. So better to give yourself some room there. And they may say, like, hey, this other contractor told me they can get it done in 3 weeks. And you could be like, that's great. Maybe they can. I doubt that they will. They're probably just overconfident. I know this project, and just to be totally honest with you, it's going to take probably at least 4, maybe even 5 weeks. That's going to set you apart because you can be upfront with them. And it also lets you know that they know, even if this person, let's say they do take longer than this other contractor, that you're totally honest and transparent with them. So make sure you're setting that up properly with the scheduling. The next thing is, communication. So keeping high levels of communication. Make sure you're calling trades ahead of time. Hey, are you still on schedule to get started next week? Things like that. A good communication tip with clients. This is a really great tip because it sets things up so nicely for you and the client, and just makes your life a whole lot easier. And the clients, like that experience that they get is just like through the roof. On Fridays, send them an update email of like what got completed this week and what's going to get completed next week. Even if they're living at the home, at least always be telling them kind of what's going on and what's happening, ahead of time. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. Just a quick couple bullet points, like installed flooring this week, ordered countertops next week is countertop install and painting or what have you. So it's just something quick, but it just helps your clients feel like they're in the picture. It also helps you kind of think ahead of like what's going on. And it's just a great way to keep really good communication. The next and final point I'm going to get on with project management, and this is a huge topic. You can go check out some of my other videos on project management to get more of the nitty gritty details of like specific tips and how to get this all set up. But quality control, one of the easiest kind of systems to get set up. And one thing that I think not a lot of guys really use that effectively is having a good quality control checklist. Just a checklist of everything that you need to check on a project. And I think the checklist is easy, but actually using it is the part where things break down because you get busy, you don't want to use it and what have you. But run through your checklist. The different checklists you should have is the pre-construction start checklist. So what I mentioned earlier about making sure your selections are done, making sure the schedule is completed, making sure that you've pre-gamed, material orders and things like that as needed. The next one would be a foundation checklist. You're going to want a framing checklist, rough-ins checklist. So make sure your rough-ins have all been done good. Last thing you want is for a drywall to be installed and then realize like, oh, we forgot to run this wire. Oh, we forgot to put that plumbing in the right place or what have you. Now you're taking out drywall or taking out flooring. So you don't want that situation. That's where a checklist will help you big time. And then kind of at the end is a closeout checklist, your final finishing, checking paint, just all the finishes and everything is done properly. So use those checklists effectively and it'll help that whole closeout process go a lot smoother. If you ever got to the end of a project and it feels like you've only got about 5% left, but it takes about 10-15% of the actual time, it's because probably you didn't have a good closeout process and a good checklist in place. All right, so still moving on here. Get all of these in order. And again, come back to this video and watch it again to remember like which pieces to get into order. But this is going to help you get set up. And again, this is based off 20 years of experience of myself running contracting business, being in the construction industry, and not only like running my own businesses, but helping other contractors get their business started and helping contractors who are already doing millions of dollars in sales to help optimize and systematize their business. So pulling from a lot of experience here, this is really like the basic building blocks of getting your contracting business started. Moving on to number 8, financial management. This is going to be another area kind of like marketing. As I mentioned, finances, you're probably not too familiar with, accounting, bookkeeping, management of finances for a construction company. So I'm going to be giving you kind of the really basic things that you got to be talking about or got to be figuring out early and getting set up. First one I'm going to mention is profit first. So this is a concept. It's a book as well by Mike McCallowitz. Concept is you're going to have multiple different bank accounts. So when you get your bank account set up, if you haven't yet, or if you already have, get more set up. You're going to want about 5, maybe 6 different bank accounts. And the concept is all your revenue that you get for your business, all the sales, put into your income account. So you're going to have an income bank account. From that bank account, you're going to transfer money to all your other bank accounts. And you're going to have allocations as a percentage of your revenue to send there. So it may sound a little complicated, but it's actually very simple to use and set up. And I'm going to get into the reason why in just a second here. But just so you understand the concept, you're going to have a tax account. Maybe 10-15% of your revenue is going to go to your tax account. That goes to pay all your taxes. You're going to have another account for expenses. So this is your business expenses and things like that. So your business wages, overhead, materials, that all goes gets paid from your expense account. That's probably going to be 60 to 70% of your revenue goes to that. Then you're going to have another account that's going to be your owner's draw or your personal income account. So this is probably going to be, again, depending on your business, you're going to adjust these percentages to make what makes sense, but that could be 10 to 20% of your revenue is going to go to yourself as your own personal income to pay your personal expenses and living expenses. And then you're going to have another account for profit. Your profit account is going to be, again, a percentage. You could start at 2, it could be 5%. You're going to adjust that over time. Essentially, you want to kind of start low because you want to make sure you have money for everything else. But eventually, as your business gets more money and becomes more efficient, you're going to up that percentage of profit. And the profit account is specifically that. It's not your personal income, it's actually profit. And that profit you want to be putting into investments. That's a whole nother topic, but you want to be able to have money outside of your business that's not just everything tied into the business. It can be kind of attractive, if that's the right word, to funnel all your profit and all your money back into your business to help grow and expand and scale more quickly. But you want to be getting the mindset of having profit and taking it outside of the business and putting that in investments, putting that somewhere safe so you're building wealth. Again, that's kind of larger topic, but that's the general idea. Any questions or want me to expand on anything, drop a comment below and I'll be happy to help you out with that. From there, other parts of financial management is getting a proper deposit. So this is another confidence thing where you may not be confident or experienced with asking for money or asking for a deposit up front. Generally speaking, as a general contracting company, you're probably going to be, again, depending on the project, anywhere from 10% to maybe even 40 or 50% if it's a really small project for deposit. The reason you want to get deposit up front is because you don't have money, especially as a new business owner. You're probably not going to have a lot of money to finance a project, and you don't want to be using your own money to pay for material, pay for labor, all these things. Clients should be financing their own project. So get a deposit up front, 10, 20, 30%, whatever makes sense, and then use that money for materials, for labor to get the project going. And before that money is exhausted, so if let's say you've got 20% deposit, you've done 2 weeks of work. If you've already spent, $15,000 on material and labor or paying subs or whatever, then you should be invoicing for the next draw or the next, whatever you've done already. That deposit should always be there as like where you're drawing money to do the project. You could even set it aside and just, use your own money to get the project, but you always want to have money in the bank from the client so that you have that to draw on to complete a project. The reason you want to do this is it helps mitigate your risk if the client can't, hold money over your head, or if you have like a really long span before your next draw, which you should be invoicing regularly, but that aside, it gives you that flexibility, as well as if there is, for whatever reason, the client, can't pay on time, maybe their finances are tight or something didn't work out with their bank or whatever, you've got money and you're not financing it. This will also allow you to, if you pull in a bunch of projects, let's say you start 4 or 5 projects all generally at the same time, if you're putting about money for materials, for labor, and all this, expenses for all these different projects, you're financing that from your own, bankroll. You're going to run out of money really quickly, and you're going to have cash flow issues, and it could possibly sink your business. So that's why you want to get deposits from everybody. Make sure you're pulling in those deposits so clients can finance their own project. So invoicing is the next thing I'm going to be talking about, and then I'm going to be going into overhead and profit. So overhead markup. So invoicing, you should be invoicing every 2 weeks at least. Don't work on big milestone draws of like, let's say you're doing a new home build and you want to, you finish up to like, let's say framing before your first draw. Well, that could be 2 months. It could be 6 weeks where you're not, invoicing, and then you maybe get a big draw of like $60,000 or $100,000 or whatever. That's a really tough way to run a business. You want consistent revenue, consistent invoicing, money coming into your business. So set up the expectation early and have a system in place that you're invoicing the client at least every 2 weeks. Let's make sure that you're constantly invoicing the client, you're getting money in place. It also helps the client because they don't have to, do a big draw for $60,000 or $100,000. They can do smaller draws of maybe, $10 or $15 or $20,000 every 2 weeks or what have you. So again, depending on the size of the project and what's happening. Lastly, I'm going to talk about overhead and markup. So if you're like me, and I made this mistake early on when I started, general contracting and things like that, I used a 15% markup because it just seemed like that was the normal thing, like 15, 20% overhead markup. And, I wanted to be competitive and everything. But I just pulled that out of like my general understanding of it. Like, seems like that's what normal businesses do. What you really need to do though is figure out your overhead costs. And because you're a new business, you probably don't know all the overhead, but figure out what kind of overhead costs you're going to have and what percentage of revenue that's going to be for your business. So again, these are going to be speculative because you're starting your business. But let's say in the first year, you're you're planning to do, let's say $300,000 of business, and you're going to have $30,000 of overhead is probably a lot for a business that's doing 300,000, but at the same time, not really, because that's about 10%. Say you had $30,000 of overhead, $300,000 of revenue, you are doing 10% is the amount of overhead that you're paying. If you're then marking up, let's say a 15% overhead markup on a project, that leaves 5% for profit. But the problem with that is your estimates are probably not going to be accurate. You're probably going to go over budget. So that 5% vanishes really quickly, and it could be even more than that. So that's why you want to give yourself a nice buffer. I would say 5%, above your overhead is like a good buffer. And then on top of that is how much profit you want to make. So if you want to make 5% or 10% profit, you would add that on top of that. So your markup could be 25% or higher, 30%. So that's going to change on the project and different things like that. And you're going to have to kind of figure out things for yourself. With that overhead and markup, another thing to be conscious of is having project management time on your estimates. So during your estimating, figure out how much time you're going to spend on managing the project. So this would be managing trades, ordering materials, doing quality checks, talking with clients, organizing, managing in general. So it could be 1 hour a day, it could be 2 hours a day for a project, however long the project's going to be. If it's going to be a 6-month project, figure out, maybe an hour and a half per day for managing the project, and then figure out the hourly rate for managing that project. It could be 70, 80, 90, $100 an hour, whatever it is. Put that in your estimate and then have your overhead markup on top of that. If you're just marking up your estimates, let's say 40%, and then you figure that extra markup is just going to cover my involvement or my income, it's not going to coordinate well with different projects and different scales of projects. That's why you want to be putting your project management time as an estimated item in your project. So is that making sense? Please say this with me right now. I am going to put project management time on my estimates. Thank you. Your life is going to be so much easier, and just trust me on this. It makes a lot of sense, and it'll keep you out of the red with your business. All right, so moving on, we got point number 9, somewhere in there. So point number 9, this is going to be pitfalls. So big grand finale here is pitfalls, things that are going to keep you profitable, going to keep you running, make sure that you're hitting success and growing a huge business, getting the freedom, getting the money and everything that comes along with growing a really successful general contracting business. And I applaud you. I really do for starting a business. It's a big step, and you've done huge kind of leap forward for yourself, for your family, for everybody involved. So pitfalls. Contractor catch-22. I see this. I've been through this. I think all contractors go through this at some point, but be aware of this. And just by knowing it, it'll help you not fall into this trap. Contractor catch-22 is you become so busy that you stop marketing, stop doing sales, stop working on the business. So this is very common. You've got too many projects, you're growing, you're scaling, and things are kind of out of hand. You stop advertising, you stop marketing, you figure the good times are going to keep on rolling. All of a sudden, boom, you start finishing up projects, and maybe one project doesn't pan out or it gets pushed out. All of a sudden you got this gap, and now you've got to I've got to go and start generating revenue, generating jobs. So you get out there, you start marketing, you start doing your sales again. But there's always this delay because the energy that you put into marketing, it's going to pay off in the future. So if you go put out social media posts, you put out email marketing, you start Google ads or Facebook ads or all this stuff, yes, you may have some quick wins, but generally speaking, that branding, that marketing you're putting out there, it's going to snowball, but it's going to take a lot of time, from doing the energy to landing the sale, and then, landing the sale to actually starting a project, especially if you got permits involved and different things like that. It can take, 6 months, 1 year. So you want to always make sure that you've got evergreen marketing, and your marketing and your sales don't fall off. Always be marketing, always be selling, always keep that engine running, because it's inevitable. And I've seen this happen with businesses that have been in business for over 15 years who have a large amount of clients. They have a presence in the marketplace, and things dry up, and all of a sudden there's what happened? There's no work all of a sudden. Well, part of it is because you weren't doing anything in the background other than, trying to get a few referrals and some basic marketing. You weren't, pushing that marketing. So very important to get out of that catch-22 and always be marketing, always be thinking about sales. Even when you're super busy, be thinking in the back of your mind, if I don't get any new leads coming in this month or next month, that means in 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, I'm going to have no work. So always be pushing that. Personal finances, living large. Yeah, right. I've got, just started a business. You landed a bunch of big projects. You got a whole bunch of money, time to buy a new truck, maybe get a boat, maybe go on vacation. maybe I can build my own house now because, hey, I'm going to use my own trades, my own labor, and make a bunch of money when I sell it. So bringing in a bunch of finance, like financing a bunch of like new stuff for yourself or your business, this is a big problem. I had this happen to me and I ended up losing my house, lost my dirt bike, had a really tough time, lost a bunch of stuff, had to sell a lot of things and totally refinance and move into a smaller place and all this to restructure to be able to come from the ashes again and grow a business. But the issue is you can get out of hand and all those things that you purchase and kind of new things that you're spending money on, get into that habit of that lifestyle and it's hard to go back. If you're used to living, in a certain way, doing a certain things, purchasing certain stuff, it's really hard to sell things, to go to move to a smaller place, all this stuff. So make sure you can afford what you're purchasing and that you've got that buffer of like 6 months of expenses, that you've really got some good checks and balances in your finances and that your personal lifestyle isn't affecting your business because you're spending too much and living too large in your personal lifestyle. So I tell you from experience, don't make that happen. Say it with me. I don't need to buy things I can't afford. And really, it's all about getting that wealth building and putting money into investments. Like I said, when you love to invest, as much as you love to buy things, you will become wealthy. When you get, let's say you got an extra $20,000 in the bank, when you're like, wow, what kind of investment could I put this in so that it multiplies so I can build my wealth? When you're thinking like that, instead of like, oh wow, what could I go buy a better truck or go on vacation or can I go buy like a new pool table or or something like that, that mindset shift is going to make you super wealthy and give you a really bright future, as whereas the other one is just going to buy you a bunch of stuff. Not that you shouldn't go buy all that stuff, but just make sure you're in a good place before you go. So not to beat a dead horse here, but I think you understand the point. Last thing I'm going to be touching on for pitfalls is underbidding. So when you're getting started out, it can be attractive again to underbid projects because it's like, wow, this is a big project, right? You get those dollar signs in your eyes. It's like, I've never done a project this size. It's like a $250,000 project. And, I'm going to really kind of fine tune, sharpen my pencil. It's like, even if things don't go good, I'm still going to make money from it and this and that. You right now are very inexperienced with running a general contracting company. You're probably inexperienced with doing larger projects, inexperienced in managing the finances, managing the trades, marketing, all this stuff. So keep that in the back of your mind again of like, when you are bringing on these larger projects, don't sell yourself. Don't underbid projects just to get larger projects, just to hit revenue goals. Trust me, you'll be in a much better place if, let's say, you do $500,000 in revenue and you make like 10% profit, which would be amazing. Or if you do $1 million in revenue and you only make 5% profit. Essentially, you've made the same amount of profit, but the $500,000 company, you'll be farther ahead because you're going to probably have less work that you need to be doing. It's going to be easier to manage and you're going to be able to work on other parts of your business and really provide like a really good quality product. So not that you shouldn't shoot for the moon and like bring on large projects, but make sure you're not underbidding projects just to bring it work or getting in that mindset of like, I need to cut all my costs here and I'm really lean right now. In order to grow, your pricing needs to be at a certain point because eventually right now you might be very lean, but you're going to need to hire other people and put more money into other things to grow your business later. So set yourself up for success. Don't underbid jobs and it'll be one of the best decisions you made.